Good evening and welcome to Daily Politics and Trust TV, your robust platform for in-depth conversations on politics, policy and governance. I am Shafi'u Suleiman. Tonight, we take a look at the escalating tensions in the Middle East following a series of airstrikes on Iranian targets by Israel, which kills its key nuclear scientists and top military commanders. The brazen Israeli aggression, which it says was to prevent Iranian threats to its territory, hit several nuclear projects in the Islamic Republic. But in a swift reaction to the provocation, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei says Israel should expect severe punishment for its reckless action, while insisting that his country's nuclear projects were peaceful and in the interests of the Iranian people. Now, what does this mean for the Middle East, already grappling with the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the warning of all-out war in the region by the many Houthis rebels if Iran is attacked by Israel? Now, to help us analyze the volatile situation, an international affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, is joining us from Abuja via Zoom. We also hope to join Professor Sadiq Abba, a professor of conflictology and alternative development paradigms. Thank you for joining. Mr. Jide Ojo, it's good to see you once again.
Thank you very much, Shafi'u.
All right. Dozens
My
of
pleasure. Good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. Dozens of airstrikes, hit several targets in Tehran and other places in Iran. Israel said around 200 missiles were targeted at different, facilities across the Iranian soil, ostensibly, according to Israel, to protect its country from threats of Iran. This is coming, at the time that region is facing, series of conflicts, from the Gaza, the genocide that is ongoing in Gaza, and of course, other places within the region. What does this mean, for the entire Middle East as a region, going by the scale of this attack?
Thank you, Shafi'u. This is very concerning and very outraging and very untoward that an unprovoked attack will be unleashed on not just the nuclear sites, but some civilian casualties have been reported in a region that is under severe threat of insecurity. It's quite unfortunate. We just celebrated Salah a few days back, and it's good that all the neighboring countries from Saudi Arabia to Oman to Jordan to Iraq to Turkey have all risen to urge restraint on the part of Israel. Of course, there is a clear division. The Western world is solidly behind Israel, and the Arab countries are, in support of Iran. And this coming on the heels of the genocidal attack on Hamas and the people of Gaza is very troubling. And I think all people of goodwill needs to urge for maximum restraint, just the same way as Antonio Guterres, the United Nations General Secretary, has urged. Because in a war situation, everybody is a loser. And that is why I would urge maximum restraint on both parties.
Right. Okay. Looking at the responses, the earlier responses, one coming from the United States, for instance, that it dissociated itself from these attacks, even though many will find it difficult to believe that. And then the attack is also coming at a time, the United States is in talks with Iran, over its nuclear programs. So what does this mean about, efforts to de-escalate the tension, especially, with these talks ongoing?
Well, remember that Donald Trump, a couple of months back, gave the Iranian authorities 60 days, 2 months, within which to come to agreements with Israel on a new nuclear deal. Today is the 61st day. I think part of Israeli strategy was to pressure Iran
Okay, I think we're having issues with the signal there. Jide Ojo is trying to, connect the dots in terms of what could have triggered this large-scale.
So that it will not hear me.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say, if you can hear me, what I'm trying to say is that I think the Israeli may have used the attack on the nuclear sites of Iran as a means of mounting pressure on them to agree quickly to the nuclear deal with it and the US. As you rightly pointed out, there is an ongoing discussion in Oman trying to broker a new nuclear deal. But you see, we also must blame Donald Trump for pulling out of the earlier deal that was sealed by the government of Barack Obama, and which is what has led to this renegotiation. You see, we live in an unbalanced world. Can anyone stand up to US to cut down his own nuclear deal? Can anyone stand up to China or to France or to Britain to ask them to cut down on their nuclear deals? Why should it be Iran that should cut down? Because it's about right to self-defense. This whole nuclear deal was to protect the Iranian citizens. Look at what happened over 50 years ago in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where Japanese Pearl Harbor was attacked with atomic bomb. And that was what led to devastating effects and environmental despoliation, which facilitated the Second World War. And now Iran is using its own intellect to develop a nuclear program aimed at self-defense. And you are saying that they cannot do it because you have the sole right to do it. And are we saying that Israel, for instance, does not have a nuclear armament? You can see what the strongman in North Korea is doing. Also trying to build a very strong arsenal to protect North Korea against its enemies. So many other countries are doing it. North Korea is doing it. China is doing it. Japan is doing it. UK and the members of the Security Council, including Russia, they all have their own nuclear armaments program. But when it comes to the Arabians, the Arab nations are not supposed to have a nuclear armament. And that is the double standard the world is witnessing. Do not support violence. And we know that Iran itself has not been very, how do I put it? Iran has been fingered as supporting and funding the Houthi rebels in Yemen, the Hamas in Gaza, even these other groups all the rebel groups within and around the Middle East, their funding has been traced to Iran, including the Shiite movement in Nigeria. You know about that. So I think Iran also must rein in its own sponsorship of various terror groups, because this is what also may have made the Western world to support what Iran is doing. But I would maximum restraint on both parties.
Yeah, you talk about how the reactions were divided. The Western world backing Israel, and then the Arab countries, especially those in the Middle East, condemning the act and also pledging their solidarity with Iran. Also going by the comments made by the two actors, the two principal actors, the aggressor rather, and of course the Iranian supreme leader. What does this mean, in the coming days? Because Netanyahu is saying that these strikes will continue as possible. Once they will continue as such as soon as they are in need, meaning that they will continue to fire these strikes into Iran. And the supreme leader is also saying that you should be prepared, for the consequences of your action. In fact, he called it severe punishment. We've seen what Iran did recently. For instance, it was able to target, some facility. Was able to hit some targets in Israel, and for the first time, in spite of the so-called, defense mechanisms that are put in place by Israel, that attack, did show that Iran also has its own capacity, to react, and in that very strong terms. So what does this mean for, the level of destruction that this conflict could come up with? We've seen already civilian targets being hit in Iran.
Yeah, I quite agree with you, Shafi'u, that this is leading us to an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And the late Martin Luther King says, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth will leave everyone blind and toothless. Right. Because don't forget, in April and October last year, there were similar exchanges of gunfire and drone attacks between Israel and Iran between April and October last year. So this is just a kind of reinstatement, or do I say reactivation of such attacks that have happened last year. Hitherto before 2024, Iran has been attacking Israel interests through proxies, proxy rebel groups like Hezbollah, like the Hamas, like the Houthi rebels, and the likes. But last year, there was a direct conflict between Iran and Israel, both in April and October. And now we are in June 2025. We have seen the reactivation of this hostility. But like I said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth will leave everybody blind and toothless. So it's in good, people of good conscience, world leaders must urge de-escalation, because taking sides in this kind of conflict is an act of cowardice. Sitting on the fence, rather, if you sit on the fence and say we are not aligned, we don't want to be involved, that would be an act of cowardice to my own mind. Yes, you may be not aligned, but you should also put your thoughts out to urge restraint and de-escalation, because as it were, don't forget, while this may be a conflict between Israel and Iran, there could be a spiral domino effect where U.S. interests may also be under siege. U.S. has naval base in Saudi Arabia, I think in Kuwait, and a number of other countries. And this may also come under attack. Don't forget, Hutu rebels have been attacking some Western walls, ocean liners that have been passing through the international waterways. But I think we all must ensure that no country suffers a genocidal attack, the kind of which we are seeing in the Middle East. Because when push comes to shove, it may start in Middle East, but it will have a global ripple effect. Shafi'u, look at what is happening in faraway Russia and Ukraine. This war happening in Russia and Ukraine, look at the global impact on oil prices, look at the impact on maritime economy, because of the conflicts, many ocean liners, many ships could not sail the way they used to sail, so that they don't get hit by the missile attack between Ukraine and Russia. Right. So while the conflict may seemingly be between two countries, so those who want to just say it doesn't, I'm less concerned, you never can tell. Yeah. It will concern you when the chips are down. Okay. Like I said, maritime issue, maritime domain will be affected. The military base of US may be affected. Even some people who are just bystanders, innocent people, could become casualty. And that's why humanity comes first. Right. I think what Israel has done is a breach of international law, and all parties must urge restraint, because we don't, at the end of the day, this will leave everybody embittered. Those who are in support of Iran will continue to threaten world peace. We have seen, even look at in US, was in last 2 weeks, that a couple who are going to be married was shot dead in US because of sympathy for the Palestinian struggle. Right. And we have seen such similar act of compassion attacks in Europe, in America. So sometimes we need to, all of us need to speak up when there is conflict in one country, and we know who the aggressor is in this particular conflict. So I think US and its Western allies must also urge Benjamin Netanyahu to exercise restraint and stop pounding Iran, so that the peace initiative, the nuclear deal talk that is currently going on in Oman, can be concluded. Right. And let's give more time for that exercise to be consummated. Right. That would be my own submission here now.
Right. Based on your submissions and your concerns, the fears are already here. The United States has been talking about, it's been trying to dissociate itself, at the same time also pleading that Iran should not target its own interests, those interests you mentioned earlier, meaning that it is also a concern about the possibility of such reprisals, if you like. But then you also talked about the impact of the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They've already issued a warning before the strike that once Iran is hit by Israel, they're going to come all out, for a war and destabilize the entire region. So this perhaps is something that also should be expected. Again, looking at the international reactions now, the Vice Speaker of the Russian Upper House has just made it clear. He said Russia will stand by its ally, Iran. They also talked about the fact that this attack is unprovoked, and of course, it limits it perhaps expand, if you like, or stretch, the level of patience Iran can exercise. So meaning that the entire world is at risk. So what do you make up with this reaction coming from the Russian authorities?
Of course, I'm not surprised at the reaction from Russia. Don't forget that the Russian government has been in support of Iran, just the same way it has also been supporting the Assad government in Syria. And then, of course, even the coupists in Africa have been enjoying the support of Russia, not just the Wagner group, but that was led by Pogozin, or what is his name, but also the Russian government as it were. So it's causing a division, and in this sense, there might not be a unanimity of or a consensus action by the United Nations Security Council, because obviously now, even if you want to sanction Israel, it's obvious that Israeli allies like the US, France, Britain, will sanction it, will veto it. I don't know where China stands in this, but we know out of these 5 members, even when one veto, that sanction cannot be meted out. And as it were, with Russia also queuing behind its ally, Iran, it then shows that it has weakened the position of the United Nations, particularly the Security Council. But the UN General Assembly can still issue a statement, and that's why I find it heartwarming that Antonio Guterres has actually issued that statement urging for maximum restraint. I think African Union, I think even ECOWAS and other sub-regional bodies should also join forces to call for restraint, because we need global peace. The events in the Middle East is a threat to global security as a whole. I've given you instances where, even in faraway America, there have been sympathizers who have even committed murder to draw attention to what is happening in the Middle East. I gave you the instance of a couple who are about to be wedded, who was shot dead by a sympathizer of the Palestinian cause. Also in Germany, I saw a footage of a member of parliament in Germany who had to be excused out of the parliament for just wearing a T-shirt with the inscription Palestine. You know, it evokes memory. So when we had Iran to Palestine, you can see that there is a greater threat to Middle East peace accord, as well as the global security. And it is for these reasons that I'm urging African leaders and world leaders generally to also speak out, to urge restraint, to urge for the escalation of this crisis. Whether a country is strong or weak, they have a right to exist. Might should not always be right. I know that Iran may not be able to stand up to Israel and its allies. But again, does Iran have the right to exist? Of course it does. Likewise, every other country have the right to existence. And many of us are accident of birth. We did not choose where to be born. And if we happen to be born in a country that is under oppression, definitely people are going to rebel. So I think a couple of things I will advise. First is that the peace deal, the talk on nuclear armament that is going on between the US and Iran should be quickly brought to an end with a very good outcome, so that this might lead or make Israel to back down on this act of aggression. Because again, I must not fail to mention that Israel also has a right to self-defense and a right to existence. And we know that the state of Israel has been permanently under siege. But an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, will leave everybody blind and toothless.
Right. Okay. Now, looking at those who could spearhead or drive, the process of de-escalation. You talked about the fact that quite a number have interest, the Israel allies have interest in protecting and ensuring that, Israel is not hit or is not on the edge. Again, the Arab countries also in the Middle East, and of course the allies of Iran, like the Russia and others, are also solidly behind Iran, and then also justifying in a way the possible reaction from Iran. And then those at the middle, for instance, the the United Nations and other international bodies also seems to be toothless, so to speak, because they are largely driven by this so-called, Western superpowers. So how do you think this de-escalation can work in this cycle of, interest-driven world?
Well, it can only work where there are commitments and political will on the part of the superpowers, because Israel is just not acting on its own. It's receiving tacit support from US and its allies, like France, like Germany, like UK. They are all queuing up in support of Israel. Even when you read what Macron has issued, the statement it has issued, while it's urging for restraint, he also said that the Palestine, the Israeli government have a right to self-defense. Of course, every country have a right to self-defense, but we must not say because one country is weak and the other is strong, the strong ones should emasculate and annihilate the weak ones. That's why we have United Nations assembly, General Assembly, and even the Security Council and the rest of it. So people of goodwill have to speak out. The UN Secretary General needs to do more, facilitate a kind of diplomatic shuttle between the two countries to help mediate that peace, ceasefire and peace deal. But I think the US government also owes a duty to quickly brought to an end this long diplomatic talk over the Iranian nuclear deal, so that they can sign this new deal and then the tense situation can be brought under control.
Okay, finally, before we let you go, Sir Jide Ojo, what do you hope to see, in the coming days, because there has been concerns around the possible retaliation, and Iran did not mince words, it's going to retaliate. And so what do you expect, in a couple of days to come?
What I would expect is for Donald Trump, as the unelected policeman of the world, to step in and urge restraint both on the part of the Iranian authorities and Benjamin Netanyahu. Did you know, Shafi'u, last week I watched on CNN, former Prime Minister Omar one of the former prime ministers, condemning the genocidal attack in Palestine, particularly in Gaza. And that is very shocking, because you talk about esprit de corps, but the old man is saying enough is enough. And if we are saying that Israel should back down on the Hamas in Gaza, we should also be able to urge a similar restraint on both the Iranian government as well as the Israeli government to also back down and stop all this act of retaliation, because it's an ill wind that blows no good. It's a bad omen if we allow all this tension to subsist. So it is in the interest of global peace that people of goodwill, global leaders, from across the divide, whether you are an Arabian leader or you are a Western world leader, people must find a midpoint where issue of restraint be paramount, and then let there be a new nuclear deal between U.S. government and the Iranian government, so that Israel will also feel less threatened by the action and activities of Iran, because Benjamin Netanyahu said he has to take this preemptive action in order to protect his own internal security. And you cannot say that it's not justified, given what Israel has witnessed in over 50 years, since 1976 or thereabout, when they fought the Yom Kippur War. It's gone through a lot, including the Holocaust, where millions of Jews were extrajudicially murdered in the gas chambers of Germany under Adolf Hitler. So that history is behind them, and they have a right to existence. But while you have a right to existence, you do not also have a right to exterminate or annihilate another country. Right. And that is why I would say, let's give peace a chance on both sides.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ojo. Let's give peace a chance in the interest of global peace and stability. Thank you very much for joining the conversation tonight. We appreciate your perspectives.
My pleasure. Right. Do enjoy your weekend. Keep safe and stay blessed.
Thank you so much. And viewers, in a bit to also be joining Professor Sadiq Abba, who is a professor of completology and alternative development paradigms. He will also be joining us to provide context and perspectives to this very important issue. We will take a break now, and we will return. The conversation continue. Stay with us.